I guess that was the part that I couldn't really reconcile based on what I know of him is he's I guess the fact that he has to build up confidence.
I'm Neil Christensen, author of Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and you're listening to the Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey audiobook podcast. On this show, every episode, I'll read you one chapter of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and then we'll be joined by a guest, author, editor, reader, pundit, to discuss the chapter, its merits, and its failures. These will be frank conversations focusing on writing craft. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. Chapter 2. When I wake up, my wife is in the shower, singing to herself. I roll over and put my feet on the floor. I'm tired still, and my body aches from the unused adrenaline produced last night. I cough up some brownish phlegm from the cigarettes and spit it in a tissue. The shower stops, and my wife walks in the room naked. She traipses over to her dresser with an energetic spring in her step. "Good morning, love," she says cheerfully. "Good morning, Elle," I yawn while rubbing my eyes with both hands. "How was work?" I cough again. "Long," I say. "Tough client?" "Not particularly. Pretty standard. Just a late night." She turns and looks at me sympathetically while she steps into her panties. "Did you talk to Mika about cutting back on some of the night shifts?" I yawn again, stretch, and stand up. "No, it was too late when I got done. I just wanted to get home. I thought I'd swing by this morning and have a few words with her." "Well, be tough. Stand your ground. You've been doing all the overnights lately. She's got to have someone else that can take a night shift or two." I laugh, walk over and kiss her forehead. "I'll do what I can," I tell her. I walk into the bathroom, grab my toothbrush and sit on the toilet, scrubbing my teeth while I do my business. Elle comes in, dressed now. She's in heels, stockings, and a skirt suit that's more than a little flattering on her. She spritzes her hair with some aerosol product and comes over to kiss me goodbye. "What happened to your arm?" she asks, nodding at my bandage. "Oh," I force a chuckle. "Scraped it on the dumpster at work." "Hey," I deflect. "How come everybody at work gets to see you all decked out in the naughty lawyer garb, but all I get is the jammy pants and t-shirt?" She laughs. It's a nice laugh, easy and carefree. "You got to see me naked 2 seconds ago." "Not the same thing," I argue. "Well, I'll tell you what. You go tell your boss to stop hugging all your evenings, and I'll show you what a naughty lawyer I can be." I smile. "Deal," I say. "Okay," she says. "Gotta go put away all those bad guys." She kisses my lips and saunters out of the bathroom with a sassy sway in her hips, intended to show me just what I'm missing when I work late. I sigh. Time to put on my big boy undies and go talk to the boss. Another shower, a new bandage, and I'm back in my uniform. I holster my weapon and comb back my hair. I'm out of the house by 9 a.m., steering my car back towards the city, rehearsing my conversation in my head. "Look, Mika, I owed you. I owed you a lot, but that was 15 years ago, and I've been working it off ever since. Don't you think we're even by now? Can't we just call it square?" Even. Ha! As if we could ever be even. How much is my life worth? If someone saves your life, can you ever square that up? You're even when you get what was coming to you in the first place. No one is ever even with Mika Cole. No one ever gets to just walk away. You want out? She just takes back what she gave you in the first place. Your life. The way I figure it, just broaching the subject has a better than even chance of being the last request I ever make. But I have to do it, because I can't go on this way. I'm scared of Mika, but I'm terrified of myself, of who I've become. Not that I was a good person before. On the contrary, I was a big bag of shit, and I didn't deserve the second chance that she gave me. On paper, Mika looks like the good guy, or, gal, as it were. She takes bad people like me, and either gets rid of them or puts them to good use. Good, I suppose, is a relative term. The point is, the legal system doesn't seem to be able to do its job. So, I guess someone's gotta. If people knew what Mika was doing, they might just think she's a hero. Hell, I used to. Like I said, when I was 19, I was a real piece of shit. The only reason I graduated high school is failing me would have hurt the district's stats more than my future. I dealt pot and ecstasy and even a little heroin when I could get my hands on it. I wasn't a good person, but I wasn't really a monster either. I was nothing, but I didn't know that yet. I wouldn't learn that little nugget until one unfortunate night in the city. See, I'd grown up in the suburbs, and all my rage and emptiness had been inflicted on other suburban kids. Kids who had soft lives and wealthy parents. Kids who were easy to take advantage of. Eventually, I found out that the city is a much different place. I had this client. I'm using that term loosely. Really, he was just a kid I sold a bunch of E to. He comes to me one day and he says he's got this cousin that's having a party and wants to buy a bunch of Molly. How much is a bunch? I asked him. Like a ton. Like maybe 15 pills, he says. Look, 15 tablets of E is not a ton, but it was to this kid, and frankly, it was to me too. It was enough that I didn't even have it to sell to him. I also wasn't going to pass up the money that it would bring in. Like I said, I was a piece of shit, and I knew that I could dig up something that I could pass off as E. You give him a baggie with what you've got, maybe 6 tabs. Then you backfill the rest with baby aspirin. At the sale, you let him try a tab, but you make sure that the good ones are on top, see? By the time the party is in full swing, no one's going to say shit about the bad pills. The nice thing about being a drug dealer, especially in the suburbs, is that there's no customer service department. No one's going to come back and demand a refund. Well, I don't have that kind of quantity on me, I said, but I'll put it together for you and let you know what it's going to cost. The kid looked at his feet. Actually, man, she doesn't have any money. I let out a grunt expressing my displeasure at him wasting my time. But she's really hot. I gave him a bit of a grossed out face. Your cousin. You're telling me that your cousin is really hot. What the fuck is wrong with you? Fuck off, he said, turning aggressive. She is. It's a fact. She's fucking hot as hell, and she said she'd suck your cock for the pills. Not like you've never done that before. Yeah, for a pill, or a dime bag, or a little coke. Not for 15 fucking doses. The kid was pissed. Clearly, he'd made promises. From the sound of it, he had received a few promises of his own. Fucking sicko. Look, I said. Tell her it's all the way, and she brings a friend. Then I'll get her the pills. He gave me a look like he was suddenly judging me for my perversity, but he nodded and said he'd let me know. The next day, we were on. And that weekend, we drove to the city, a run-down public housing complex on the north side that the locals knew by name. It was a concrete fortress of buildings, some abandoned, many with boarded-up windows or burn marks on the cement. There was no security at the entrance or doorman to check in with, so we made our way to her place unannounced. When we rang the bell at her door, it was opened by her old man. He was middle-aged and gnomish, in a greasy undershirt with his belly hanging out like he was 8.5 months pregnant. My client nodded at him and called him by his first name. Then he pushed me through the door. The walls in the place had once been white, but now resembled a yellowish gray. There were smoke stains and uneven patterns of brownish filth across the ceiling. The carpet was worn down to threads and covered in crumbs and other disgusting debris. We walked down a short hallway past the kitchen to a tiny bedroom with old Hello Kitty posters hanging loosely off the walls. My client introduced me to his cousin, then dropped himself on a twin bed, lacking sheets or blankets. The girls were cute and clearly older than both of us. They started kissing each other before the door was even closed. After a minute of that, they approached me and started reaching for my fly. That's when I put on the brakes. Whoa there, honey, I said. Not sure how your family works, but I'm not getting busy a room away from your old man, and I'm certainly not going to pull out my dong in front of your pervy cousin here. The girl shrugged. I thought that was the deal, she said. Yeah, sure, but don't you want to go someplace a little more private? She let out a frustrated groan. Do you even have the stuff? I pulled out a zipper bag with 3 tabs of E and a dozen aspirins that I had shaved down to match the real stuff. All right then, she said. We can go next door. Ain't no one using that hole for anything. By next door, she meant the next building over. The front door to the place was hanging on a single hinge, and inside it was like standing in a filthy fireplace. Soot covered the walls, and there were charred pieces of metal and glass strewn across the floor. In the corner of the entryway, maybe 10 feet from the door, was a thick, dirty mattress. I don't know what made me think that shagging in a burnt-out, condemned building was better than the previous alternative. I was pretty wound up at that point, so I suppose I just wasn't thinking at all. The girls jumped on the mattress immediately and looked back at me while running their hands up under each other's shirts. My brain was on fire, and I had pins and needles running down my neck. I had tunnel vision looking at the 2 of them kissing and touching each other. I walked over to the mattress and let them undo my pants. They pulled them down to my knees, then did the same with my boxers. The friend took my junk in her hand and squeezed it tight. I looked down to tell her to ease up and noticed that she wasn't even looking at me. The 2 of them were both staring right past me with matching grins. Then I heard the click. The 2 of them jumped up on the mattress and started laughing and squealing with overhyped girlish glee. They were bouncing and laughing and pointing, calling me profane names. I turned my head to see the father standing right behind me with a dull, beat-up-looking revolver pointed right at my head. They took the drugs, my wallet, my shoes and socks, my car keys, and some of the pot I had on me for later. Then the old man told the girls to get gone, and they did. He ordered me to get on my knees. I did as I was told. I started crying, kneeling there with my bare, limp dick swinging between my pasty thighs, waiting for the sound I probably wouldn't even have time to hear. When the sound came, though, it was different than I expected. Less of a bang and more of a crack. Then a loud grunt and a thud. After a moment of silence, a new voice told me to get up. The man standing behind me now was dressed like he was going to a funeral and holding a long wooden baseball bat. Next to him, on the ground, was the girl's dad, unconscious. I was a blubbering mess. I tried to say thank you to the mystery man, but he told me I'd better not. Then he told me something that it would take me years to learn on my own. The day will come, he said, when thanking me will be the last thing you want to do. And that's when he took me to meet Mika Cole. All right, you just finished chapter 2 of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey on the Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey audiobook podcast. This has been a really interesting kind of jog down memory lane for me, and I've been really enjoying rereading this and then having some conversations with people about about the book. Today we're going to be talking with author Jordan Fitch. Jordan wrote the books The Cardinal Line and Nametown that are both amazing thrillers, and I really appreciate your time, taking the time with us today, Jordan.
Absolutely. Thanks, Neil.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your books and kind of what kind of vibe, what kind of ambiance we're going to be getting from those, and anything else that you want to kind of promote right now?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. So, The Cardinal Line is my debut. I call it sort of a science-y thriller where I have elements of like speculative science. So think like Michael Crichton, Neil Stephenson, people like that. Another Neil author, who where there's like a speculative science kind of baked into the story, but at the same time, it's a character-driven story where we have protagonists who have to uncover some dark secrets that want to stay hidden before it's too late. So that's That's the Cardinal Line. It takes place mostly in Massachusetts, Boston, Berkshire Mountains, quite a bit of scenes in New York City as well. So sort of that area. Um, yeah, so that was my debut. Really fun to write, and I've really been blown away by the reception for it. My second is Nametown. So that one is more small and intimate. The entire story takes place in a small town, and it ties in history and sort of identity. The premise is that the town is facing facing an identity crisis with when some history is found out about the founder of their town as they're about to celebrate their bicentennial. So the town kind of fractures into different factions, and threats turn to violence. The protagonists are trying to uncover other more recent dark secrets in the town that are also driving some of the vitriol and some of the violence in the town. So they have to, again, uncover the secrets before it's too late. So they're both different books, like different vibes, different themes, but they're both like fast-paced thrillers. So
Yeah. I have not read Nametown yet, but I did read Cardinal Line, and I always like tried to compare it, saying it's like sort of like thinking man's Dan Brown. So like you've got this kind of like Dan Brown-esque, Da Vinci Code-esque feel to the story and to the pacing and to the rhythm and the science and stuff like that, but it's much more intelligent, much more intellectual and thoughtful. And I really enjoyed that when I was reading
I
it. So
appreciate that.
I can't wait to read the next one when I get around to finishing House of Leaves and I can finally bury that project behind me. But today we're talking about Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. We just listened to chapter 2, and so that is what we're going to be discussing. Feel free to, if there's anything from chapter 1 that you want to like touch on as well, that's fine. But we're definitely focusing on chapter 2. So I'm just going to kind of hand you the floor and remind you that this is definitely like critical analysis. This is like beta reading or writers group, except for a book that's already been published for over a year. So, but we're not going easy on it. We're taking it seriously. So, uh, go ahead. Let me know what you thought.
So yeah, so you I did mention beta reading. I was honored to be a beta reader for Malcolm Karma before it was published. So I got to read that version of it. Again, I'll admit that I haven't read the final version yet, besides the first couple chapters. So I did read the first couple chapters, after of the published version, and so chapter 2 is kind of where you really get to know Malcolm and what he's doing and kind of where the story is going. The first chapter is kind of showing his life, what he's currently doing. He has a job, he gets the job done, and then he's like questioning himself. You can see like at the end of chapter 1, beginning of chapter 2, and he's really questioning like you know talking about his nightmares, talking about the love for his wife, where he really wants to pursue that path and not work for Mika, right?
Yeah.
Anymore. So yeah. So he is really showing what he wants to do there. So chapter 2 is about him building up the confidence to sort of confront his boss and try to quit, which you can't quit in the normal, you can't just give a 2 weeks notice. It's not that type of job. So he's got to really steel himself up because he knows what the repercussions might be. So as he goes to confront, and then he's pleasantly surprised by how easy it is. At least he thinks at that point, right? Having just read that, and not going more into the story with kind of what was foreshadowed and stuff like that. Just looking at the first couple of chapters, it's you really get the feel for the type of story, the grit, the tensions, kind of his backstory. You kind of get the reason why he was beholden to this woman when she where when she essentially saved his life, or one of her henchmen saved his life as a younger child. So you kind of get that backstory, and yeah, I think it was really enjoyable. It kind of certainly sets up the pace for the rest of the story, and then at the end of chapter two, if that's kind of where we're limiting the scope of this discussion, that's he seems to be on a path that might kind of work out okay to his surprise. But it's obviously probably no spoilers to say it doesn't work out quite that easy. So um, but yeah, it's really like well paced. You get to know the main characters, you get to know the drive of the story, you get to know his wife, and it really sets up the tone of the story. I'd say as I was reading it, one thing that wasn't really clear was so he's like struggling to like steel himself up to confront her and quit this job. I mean, usually somebody in that situation, they know the job they're getting into, they accept the risks, they know that any day on that job could be their last day on earth. And so like as he's going, it almost seems a little bit like he's not um like he know like it seems like a character like that would know that if he went in there, he might get like taken out on the spot if he tries to quit. But like the way he's like stealing himself up, it's like he doesn't really accept that, which I think is part of it. He's got that internal conflict. So it's just kind of as he's trying to ensure that like build up the confidence and kind of think about a possible future outside of this job, as he as he goes into that, it's not like he talks about his nightmares and his want to uh to to drive start a new life with his wife and everything like that. So like I guess as I'm kind of talking about it, it kind of answers my own question that I had, where it wasn't like as somebody who goes into that job knowing the dangers, knowing the risks. But like the way his like internal dialogue, his internal monologue as he's, prepping to confront her, seems like a little bit less mature and less accepting of the situation that he's in than somebody like that would be who has carried out all these acts. If that question makes sense, or that
Yeah,
comment makes sense.
I think I understand what you're saying, but I think what it comes down to is what you said in the beginning of it is that a person that does this job normally like they know what they're doing when they get into it, right? He didn't have that choice. He didn't know what he was getting into when he got into it.
Yeah,
And he's just never had a choice. And uh so when he was a kid, it didn't bother him as much because he was kind of, a piece of shit. But as he's grown up and matured and realized that now, like he's grown a conscience, right? And so, yeah, I think that what it comes down to is he does know that going in there could be the last thing he ever does. And I think he even says something about that in there. Um, but but he's at the point now where it's almost like he'd rather be he'd rather that that it be the last thing he ever does than to keep doing what he's doing.
yeah,
He's very over it. And so he is stealing himself up. He is trying to build his own confidence and talk himself into this and decide to stick to it. Um, because he knows he has to do it. He knows he has to do it,
yeah,
and he's prepared for the potential consequences of it. Um, but so Whitaker, he's scared. Yeah, he is. He's scared of doing it. He's
yeah.
scared of trying to quit. But he just knows he can't keep going on living like this.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that was the part that I couldn't really like reconcile based on what I know of him is he's I guess the fact that he has to build up confidence for, because certainly what he does in his job, I mean that takes a lot of confidence. And the popular stereotype is that somebody like that is kind of stripped of feeling and sort of self-reflection as they go through these jobs as that process. So like somebody going into that, seems like they'd be once they've made that decision, um, they would, probably have the confidence already,
So
or like either the confidence or the lack of care, the lack of
the lack of
self-reflection.
fear, right? I think what um maybe isn't coming through, like at least in terms of like my own head canon for the book, right? Is and I think I basically I think the cold open of the book, the chapter one opening stuff, I was trying to get this across. Malcolm's not out there like getting in gunfights with people, right? He's not out there like taking on like these gangsters and other killer, other like assassins and stuff like that. He's taking out like bad people, at least as far as he knows. But but it's all kind of like in the alley in chapter one, right? The guy didn't see it coming. He just stepped out, put the knife in him, and then had him on the ground and eventually shot him. Um, so it's not like a life or death thing every day. I don't think. I mean, it certainly it always could be, but I think that for as long as he's been doing it, like it just that's not a thing that he experiences. And so he doesn't think of it that way. He thinks of himself more as like he's the alpha predator and the people he takes out are not people that are a threat to him.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe that dichotomy works well just to show Mika's power, because he is, that sort of shadow in the dark
Hmm.
lurking, takes somebody out when he is entirely sure of the outcome. He waits till the perfect moment type of thing, and he has that, that confidence in what he does there. But then, as he's like, kind of like a nervous employee, like going to ask the boss for a raise or something like that,
Yeah.
kind of like it feels like that, but it also comes across, it can serve to like show, you know, um, show Mika's power too,
Hmm.
because just talking to her about something that is abnormal, and that she was probably not going to grant, that instills a fear in him that he doesn't have in the
Right.
job. So
Like if
I
he
think
can
in
go
that
out
sense,
and if he can go out
right,
and do these like killings and assassinations, without breaking a sweat, so to speak, but he's afraid of her,
right,
well, that
right.
says something about her.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's a fun story, having read the rest. And I at least the beta version. And I don't know if there's any major like structural changes or sort of plot changes, but it's um and like I'm having read Dark White as well. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, because I think you have like said that these are part of the same world, and
Yeah.
obviously there's some ties in at the end that were really satisfying to read. And having read Dark White first. But yeah, it's another great entry into the seedy Chicago underbelly that you've created there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's uh it's fun. My books are all they're all kind of like what are we calling this? Interconnected standalones, right? So they all
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
take place in the same world, the same universe. But that doesn't mean that we're following the same characters over and over again. There's there are some characters that reappear, you know,
Yeah.
across books, but they're not generally main characters. They're just kind of like, oh, I recognize that person. Like, there's a character that is not even a character in Dark White, but is uh but is just a referenced person, like someone that is referred to but never appears on the page other than just talking about them, and then they end up being the antagonist in one of my works in progress uh, called Bishop Church, that is on the back burner right now as I'm working on my legal thriller romance, inadvisable romance. But even that, is it's not in Chicago, but it's down kind of in the Joliet Plainfield area
Yeah.
of the Chicago suburbs. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of thrillers do that, like the serialized thrillers,
mhm.
where you can put like they're all standalone. You can pick up any one, like I think of Jack Reacher books or something
Yep.
like that, where you can pick up any one, and it's not a too much of a progression on the last one, but there are like recurring characters or
Yeah.
and um obviously like the main character, but it's I think that works well for thrillers where if you have a series you can like I recommend any of them, and the order doesn't really matter, but like you kind of get the nuggets if you've read a few of them that's satisfying, that has that payoff. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, maybe someday, fans will come up with a name for the umbrella of
yeah,
all the books, like the
like the Cosmere or something
yeah, yeah,
for
exactly.
Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, right.
Um, but I don't it's funny, I don't even really think of them that way. I know that they all take, just because it's easy to just know for me, that this is all in the same world. And then sometimes characters show up that are across novels that it wasn't like a plan thing. It just happens, it just kind of makes
Yeah,
sense. And so, yeah, but I like, I've thought about doing like a direct sequel to Dark White with Gavin, and I've thought about doing a direct sequel to this with Malcolm, but I don't have a story for him, you know? And when the story, you need to have the story before you can't just sit down and start, like writing. I mean, you can, and it's a good exercise. But for me, like one of the reasons that Bishop Church is on the back burner right now is because I had a character, I had a setting, I had kind of the beginnings of a story. Um, but I didn't have an ending. Like I don't even have like the back two-thirds of the book. Like, and so uh I just couldn't, like I was just stuck, and I was like I can't write it if I don't know where I'm going. I
right.
have to have a target to aim at. And so I ended up, I'd sit there and stare at the page and be like, well, like I can just keep writing him doing things, but it's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
Um, and also the other thing is that for people who've read my books, and I did I mentioned this in a video recently. I'm not really strong on like heavy A and B plots, like having an A plot, a B plot, a C plot. Like um, I I kind of follow there's a little bit more of that in Malcolm Karma, but it's not so much A plot, B plot, C plot as just jumping to different people's point of view and seeing the same story kind of like uh how it develops from everyone's point of view. Um but with Bishop, I really wanted it to be like a mystery novel instead of a thriller. Um, and so there are like these other A plot and B plot and C plot that have to like come and weave together. And I kind of like know where they all start, but I don't know how they connect yet. And and so yeah, I get a little I got to a point where I was just like I can't do anything with this. I love it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written in terms of what has been written so far, but I'm stuck on it, and so it went on the back burner, and I have this legal thriller romance that I have the whole story for, that I know everything that
Yeah.
happens and how it ends. So as long as I have that with something to aim at, I'm going to be working on that.
Nice.
All right. Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Uh, no, no, I think so. I think I was just kind of it. Just kind of the first couple of chapters are really good for just kind of setting the tone and kind of kicking us off on the on this journey that ends up going in a bunch of different places. So it's fun. I'll be anxious to read the rest of the final version after having read the beta version.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've been talking to some of the guests about, again, spoiler, these aren't recorded in order necessarily. Um, but a lot of the guests have shown interest in like at the end of the podcast, when we get through the whole book, having kind of a final episode where all the guests are able to come back and have a conversation about uh, the book as a whole, compared to where it was when they were, at their chapter,
Sure, sure,
and
sure.
kind
Yeah,
of
I think
like,
that's a great idea. Yeah,
so that might be fun to like have just like 26 of us on a
yeah,
Zoom call, like just chatting about, the how it you know rounds itself out.
yeah. I think
Well,
that's a really cool idea because I haven't like seen seen podcasts like breaking down chapter by chapter so I think that's a pretty original idea. So I really hope
I
it goes well for you.
I came up with this idea. This is episode 2, obviously. But I came up with this idea from a couple different things. One is I had been doing audio book narration of Dark White on YouTube, and I'm still working on that. But and I was enjoying that and thinking this is fun. I like doing this. And it's a good way for me to get an audiobook version created. Um, but then there's these podcasts for TV shows like this, right? So I listen to the West Wing one, where they literally go episode by episode, and they've got some of the
Okay,
cast from the
sure.
show.
Yeah,
There's
okay. Neat.
hosting it, and they bring in special guests and stuff, and they just episode by episode talk about the episode, and stories about filming it, and stories about the writing and all of that. And I always really liked that as an idea. And so I thought like this would be a fun thing to kind of do. And then at one point I had been trying to do a podcast for Dark White that I called I said it was a like the audiobook, but with like a DVD commentary, where like after you're when you're watching a movie on DVD, you could turn on the audio commentary, and then like the actors and directors are talking about it. um and so I thought that would be fun to do, but I'll be honest, what it comes down to is I just don't think I'm very interesting to just sit here and talk into the microphone myself about it. And I also don't necessarily know what a person would want to know about it. So that's when I was like, I'll just have other people come on and talk about it and give their
Yeah, that's a
critical
great idea.
feedback. Yeah. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's been fun. I can't wait. The first episode comes out in November. Um and then like the first week in November, and then I'll just be doing them weekly after that. So
Well, thanks for inviting me.
absolutely. Hey, you want to tell people where they can find you online and where they should follow you?
Certainly, yeah. So, my website, jordanwrites.net, has all the updated happenings. You can subscribe to my newsletter there. Otherwise, both the Cardinal Line and Nametown are available on all the major retailers, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, and you can find them in a growing number of bookstores and libraries as well. So, yeah, that's the best place. And then I don't think I'm too hard to find on the socials. If you look, I'm on pretty much all of them. So,
All right. Well, I'll have links to all of that in the show notes as well. So everybody, please go and check out Jordan's work. Like I said, I'm looking forward to reading Nametown, but The Cardinal Line is one of my favorite indie author novels that I've read. So definitely recommend that. And Jordan, thanks so
appreciate
much
that.
for taking some time on a Sunday night to chat with me.
Yep. Yeah, great talking to you, Neil. All right, take
All right.
care.
Talk to you soon.